Welcome. We're happy you could join us for today's webinar, Quality Impacts Business, Driving the Bottom Line Success Through Quality. Before we start, a quick housekeeping item. Please feel free to submit questions through the Q&A chat. We will have plenty of time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions. Here's a quick overview of what we'll cover today by myself, one of your hosts, Jennifer Bianchini. I'm on the product marketing team at ETQ, and joining me is Rissa Sparks, Chief Financial Officer, also at ETQ. Today, we're going to cover three key areas. The first is a brief overview of the value quality brings to your organization. Then we will look at key items such as KPIs, terms that resonate with teams outside of quality, and ROI data to help you better communicate with your CFO. Last, we'll take a look at how this information and start building out a business case for quality management system, highlighting the ROI data. And as I mentioned previously, we'll have time at the end for a Q&A. So let's begin. So we've heard from our customers that it can be challenging to get funding for their quality management system investments. And what we hope to help you with today is to provide you with some guidance on the information that is needed to build a business case, and what your CFO and other stakeholders expect to hear in a business case. For example, the terms for justifying the funding when asking for money, while other parts of your organization are also requesting funding. This type of information helps the teams who are making these types of decisions on what is the best type of investments and resources for the organization. And as you can see here, quality has an effect across the entire organization. Investing in a quality management system benefits everyone, from the CEO, helping them to drive consistent business results, to the CIO, and compliance for managing quality across the product lifecycle, and then the COO for improving operation efficiency and more. When you invest in a quality management system that delivers value across your organization, you have a system that supports continuous improvement of quality for customer satisfaction, product safety, and regulatory requirements. So, how do you get there? Start by showing the business value of a quality management system, what it will add to your organization. It's more than saving money. It's about investing money to help the top line, the revenues, as well as costs. And quality helps drive revenue by increasing productivity. It helps to eliminate that labor-intensive work that might take place on a daily basis. And if you have happier employees creating better products, you'll have happier customers because of the better quality products in the market, which brings better products to market faster. So, how do we make sure we are investing, especially today with the economic headwinds and sometimes the things that can get in the way of investing? We start by helping everyone understand how to put the best case forward for investing in quality at this point in time, especially when the organization is balancing competing needs and the organization needs to invest wisely. We want to help you put the best case forward for a wise investment. And why do we want to help you? Because we are passionate about bridging the gap between quality and the business and understanding the ROI. As quality professionals, we talk about what you see here in the yellow sticky notes: continuous improvement, quality events, Six Sigma or nonconformance. They are very focused on quality. What we don't do is talk about the business terms: profit, margin, expenses, or revenue. But there are several areas in which quality does get into that crosses over to the business side: warranty, recalls, scrap, and waste. They have an impact on the organization. So, how do we go from talking about the items in quality to the items that talk about the business? Because the warranty, recalls, scrap, and waste start to drive results when it comes to increasing revenue, reducing expenses, and increasing margins. This becomes even more important, for example, public companies, where the annual report has this information. This information is valuable and very visible. So, as quality people, we have a real impact on how our companies, what its position is in the market, and not just for products, but for the financial markets too. So now I'd like to take this point of the webinar and turn it over to Rissa, and she will share with us how to effectively communicate a QMS business case to your CFO.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you all for joining today. As Jennifer mentioned, I am ETQ's Chief Financial Officer, and I'm looking forward to talking through some framing that hopefully will be helpful as you're working to gain finance support really for any investments, and ways to make those conversations a bit easier as you're interacting with your finance teams. I think we can all agree that the current economy is quite challenging and there's a lot of uncertainty. Most companies right now are really monitoring spending closely, and there's a lot of pressure to make reductions, especially I'm sure you're seeing it in your finance teams. In these situations, I find that companies can go in two routes or two directions. They're either reactive or proactive in how they approach those economic changes. And within that, they're really trying to manage an increasingly limited pool of resources and how they're allocated. If we turn to the next slide, so by reactive, I'm really referring to a tendency that companies have to immediately turn to cost cutting, which I'm sure we've all seen. And typically there's a few levers that companies have to manage costs really within a short-term period. And these are things such as reducing discretionary spending, delaying hiring. A little bit more, impactful is reducing the real estate footprint of that company. And then in the worst case scenario, laying off employees. There's two other levers that are used, but not as frequently and that can be delaying non-critical projects, as well as raising prices for customers. While all of these things, are relatively straightforward in some cases to enact, they can really have a negative impact on the organization. Obviously, first and foremost, it impacts employee morale. It can have an adverse brand impact. And additionally, by reacting to economic situations or changes, an organization is not necessarily creating a framework and a foundation that allows them to grow when the economy changes. And by not investing in automation and some of those foundational pieces, they're poorly positioned when the economy improves. And so by not looking at how to take a limited pool of resources and maybe making cuts in certain areas and reallocating them for growth, it can create some challenges in the longer term. If we look at companies that are proactive, which is on the next slide, this is really the other option for companies, to be both proactive and think about how to thoughtfully invest longer term, really in things around automation and productivity enhancing technology, such as quality management systems. And what is the payoff in doing this? This is things like optimized business processes, that foundation that prepares a company for growth and the ability to scale efficiently as well, improved employee morale. And then underlying all of this is longer term, and in some cases near term, cost savings that only benefit the company. But this is really hard to do. And it's really hard to think about this when you're in a challenging economic environment. And this is why it's so important to really clearly frame your business case when you're partnering with your finance organization to try to put through a new investment. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, how do CFOs evaluate investments? And really, how do you best frame the conversation as you're going to your CFO to ask for a new investment? I think first and foremost, come prepared. I think that goes without saying, and arm yourself with data. I think data can be really useful, and coming in with the right information that really frames out, what the problem is, what the solution that is from the investment, and what's the cost benefit impact. It's only going to help you get your approval and also get it in a timely fashion. I think, getting an answer relatively quickly can help the organization move forward, and help you move forward as well with whatever it is that you're implementing. A few of the things that I like to focus on when I'm walking through an investment proposal is, starting with the nature of the request. Why are you making this request? And it can be a few different things. It can be a replacement for an existing tool. It can be something that's required. You can have a customer contract that dictates you make some sort of change or investment, or it can be compliance and legal related. It can support a growth opportunity, or it can enable some sort of productivity within the organization. But understanding the why of the request really helps frame out what needs to be done. The second piece that I like to dig in on is that strategic fit. As a finance leader, I'm working with a very limited pool of money, as I've said, and I have lots of requests that are coming to me pretty much continuously. And I have to make a decision on where those funds are going and how to best serve the near and long-term goals of the organization. So I need to very clearly understand why I should give you money versus someone else, and also be able to really clearly articulate how that's going to best serve the organization. So it's very helpful when someone comes to me and they can help me make that judgment, that they can clearly link the request to the organizational goals. And one thing I do want to call out is often I'll get requests that someone has really come in and done the financial analysis, and it is something that is net profitable to the organization, but doesn't align with the goals of the organization. So it's taking away, even though it's profitable, resources from other core activities. And so it's not something that I'll typically approve in that case, because I really need to be focused on the core business and the core goals for the organization. And then the next piece is the financial business case. And so this is really is this a profitable investment? and when is it going to be profitable? It's helpful to understand the timing. Is it a year? Is it 10 years? And it's not to say that 10 years is not something you would give money towards, but those are two different time periods to realize profitability. And there's, a number of financial metrics that you can use to help build that financial business case. There's things like net present value, payback period, or return on investment. But essentially, it's really looking at, do the returns on the investments really justify the costs that are going to be needed to make that investment? And when you're looking at the financial business case, you're, looking at both that top line or revenue growth, or you could be looking at that cost reduction, or it could be both. So, you can have a proposal that's solely a cost reduction, and that's absolutely fine. But these are things you need to frame clearly as you're bringing that proposal in. And, when I'm digging in, when I get a request, I'm really looking at, what is the confidence level with the assessment? What is the probability that you truly are going to hit all of the numbers that you're presenting to me? I really test the major assumptions, both if they're optimistic or too conservative. I'm looking at both sides. Are they defensible? Do they align with what we know of the world, what we know of the business itself? And really being able to have a conversation there. I'm also looking for hard savings. So those are savings that have a fair amount of probability or confidence in reaching, and they carry a little bit more weight than those soft savings, which have a little more assumption based to those savings. There's a lower probability and more risk associated with those savings. So you want to think about, as you're really thinking of putting together those numbers, are these numbers that, I have a fair amount of confidence that we can reach, versus the ones that are a little more qualitative and harder to measure. And then I always really want to understand too, like, what do you really need? You're obviously going to go in with 100% ask, but could you maybe get by with 50% of the product for the first year and add on a module next year? As I'm looking at the total resources I have to allocate, I want to see if there are pieces that I can move around and allocate to other equally important business needs, so that everybody can have a little bit of a win. And it could be the case that you can't, and that's absolutely fine. But it's, thinking about holistically, what is the true financial need versus what's a little bit more of a nice to have. And I'll just, put it out there that understanding the cash impact is also important. Typically, the framing for investments is more of an income statement P&L view. And I do need to understand when we're going to be paying out or have cash going out the door versus when I'm going to have cash coming in. And that's an important component of the holistic picture. And then I think finally, two additional things that I would highlight as being very important is, first, what's the risk of not making the investment? What would happen to the business if I didn't put money into this software, this tool? Would the business stop? Or, just being very honest and clear about what that outcome would be. And are there alternatives? What would that look like? Is the only other option to hire two people, if we don't make this investment? And so that also really helps frame out that overall strategic business case, so that holistically you can look at it and have a very clear conversation about what is needed, what is the outcome. And then hopefully as well, it can be a very efficient conversation so that you can get your answer relatively quickly. If we look at the next slide, I wanted to just highlight one financial metric that I find helpful, and this is return on investment. And from a formula perspective, it's relatively straightforward. It's just your revenue minus the cost to make that investment over the cost of that investment. And this is a calculation of the value of an investment versus the cost or the profitability of an investment. So this is telling me, am I making more than I'm spending on this investment? And as I said before, this is not the only factor in making a decision on an investment, but it's a very important factor, knowing if we are going to be profitable in making this investment. And one important thing, I think, with adding that lens at the financial metric is it puts the proposal in the language of the finance team and the finance leader. It creates a common language as you're approaching this proposal, which I think, as you're influencing across organizations, can be very helpful. When I see a number and I see that piece, I can translate it and I have a relative measure against other investments as well. And so, again, this is just helping to drive that overall framing to make it a more productive discussion and hopefully for you to reach the net outcome that you're looking for. I think finally, the one thing I want to also highlight with this is, really leverage your finance business partners as you're going through the financial calculations. This is what we're part of the organization for. And we actually really enjoy financial analysis. This is why we're in finance. This is, digging into the numbers. And this is a place where it's, an opportunity to leverage those internal resources to vet some of these calculations too. And it's always nice to engage cross-functionally. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to me. And I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to talk a little bit more about the QMS business case.
All right. Thanks, Rissa. Appreciate that. So as we move forward, another thing to keep in mind and to help keep those conversations going with those in your organization who will approve the funding for expanding your quality management system, such as your CFO, is you will need to position the conversation with language that is in their area of focus. So we have some examples listed here, and I'll just go through one or two of them very briefly. So for example, if your primary focus, it might be around reducing the cost of poor quality, such as scrap, rework, or complaints. But when discussing this with the approvers of your project, who will be approving the funding for your project, consider language that supports improving the quality and the profitability of your products. This is very relatable to them. And if we take a look at reducing the risk of noncompliance, while you may be focused on decreasing the number of audit findings, consider language around ensuring the organization is demonstrating compliance to all regulatory frameworks and customer requirements. So Rissa talked about ROI and its value to a CFO. So another tool you can add to your quality management business case tool belt is the ROI calculator. We developed an ROI model that was built with input from dozens of customers who use ETQ Reliance on a daily basis, and we looked for where they saw value. Based on their feedback, they identified 4 key areas where a quality management system added value to their organization, including 14 metrics. The key areas are around productivity improvements, cost savings, and revenue growth. The first is reducing the risk of noncompliance. An example of this is saving time on audits and reducing the number of audit findings, ensuring you have the information that you need during an audit. Next is streamlining operations, such as, were you able to react more effectively to any complaints? Or what is the process when a supplier delivery arrives and you need to do inspections? We saw a lot of improvement in the number of hours and people that are needed for when a quality issue arises. So the first two items I mentioned, they're looking at the time and the level of effort in addressing each area. And they're what we refer to as a soft cost. But the next two items focus on hard costs, such as improvements in scrap, fewer recalls, and reducing inventory carrying cost. And then there is growing and protecting revenue. This is through improved customer satisfaction, having customers buy more of your product, or word of mouth, or social media that allows the message to be taken to a broader audience. Also, reducing the time of bringing a product to market. This is new revenue opportunity. So, for each of these four key areas where a quality management system adds value, we've also been able to measure the area of improvements for each one. So, looking across all areas, from reducing the risk of noncompliance, we saw there was a 20% reduction in time spent planning and reporting audits. When looking at streamlining operations, there was a 15% reduction in the time spent managing supplier deliveries. For reducing costs, you can start to see some significant savings here. For example, the 3% in reduction in scrap cost, this can turn into, for some companies, hundreds and thousands of dollars. So, in all of these areas, you see an improvement in the top line and bottom line. And this is what a CFO really likes to hear about. These are the actual benefits our customers achieved. Very briefly, here is an example of an actual ETQ customer who provided us with the data to populate the ROI calculator to help build their business case. So, based on that information they provided us, when looking at investing in a quality management system, they found, based on the savings, a payback in less than 6 months and an annual benefit of $665,000. This is significant compared to the investment in a quality management system. They also had a 3-year ROI of 330%. In the four areas of value, which you see below in the pie chart, they had benefits across the board from investing in a quality management system. So again, this is the information that a CFO like Rissa likes to see and understands. So what can you do today to start the process? As Rissa suggested, begin by collecting the data that you need to build your quality business case from those within your organization who have the information. Utilize the information they have and their processes. Start to develop relationships and work with the stakeholders in your finance, IT teams, or the auditors. Learn their business terms and processes for tracking the financial health of the organization. What metrics are they reporting up to senior leadership? When you understand this, you can script these metrics into your business case and help influence the bottom line. And we are here to help you also. As an ETQ representative can provide you with the guidance you may need to build a quality business case in the language your business leaders will understand. They will help you put the picture together, highlighted in dollars and cents, the payback your organization will receive with ETQ Reliance. So I'm going to do a quick time check here, and we're good on time, and I'll check the Q&A chat. It looks like we had a couple questions come in. So one moment here. Let's see. Rissa, I think this might be a good one for you, if you don't mind. So it's a name wasn't provided, but the question is, what is an ideal ROI to target?
Yeah, and it's a great question. There's no ideal target. Positive obviously is the starting point, and higher means it's more profitable. But it's a balance of both, being positive, hopefully, being above zero, with the overall framing and overall pieces of the business case. So I wouldn't want to say that there's one target that you need to be above, but certainly you want to be positive. Hopefully that helps answer the question.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think we have another one here for you. This was submitted by Robert. So Robert is asking, sometimes you can plan your spend to help get it into the annual budget. How do you get it approved if your spend is after the budget has been approved?
So I love this question because this happens all the time. It is easier, I think we all know that, to get spend approved through the budget process. It's a natural cycle, and it's, easier as spend is being reviewed holistically across the organization. That being said, I always advise, as you go through the year, budget opens up. The business changes, you have pockets of available budget that you don't anticipate at the beginning of the year that become available. I think this is where that open conversation with the finance team and flexibility on timing is very helpful. And the ability not to be creative, but to really think about how you can work with maybe a more limited budget as you're going into those discussions. And knowing that you may not get everything that you ask if you go in January 1st, but if you go in later in the year, like a quarter to 2 quarters, budget is definitely opening up. And I would, try to time it around those points in the year. And that's certainly those points where I'm, especially like mid-year, reforecasting for the rest of the year. And I do have a lot of budget opening up that I can reallocate as well to different organizations. So I think it's even more important, if you're going outside of the budget cycle, to be really clear on that business case.
Great, thanks, Rissa. And I think this is a good question. A name wasn't provided, but I think it can help clarify what a little bit early in the presentation regarding the percentages around the hard and the soft cost savings. So we worked with a third party, and we interviewed about I think 13 or 14, maybe a little bit more, ETQ customers. And we actually looked at how they were using ETQ Reliance and where they saw the value. And so those metrics were created on the time and resources and all of the savings that they saw using ETQ Reliance. So that was based on actual customer data. So let me just look through here, see if we have any more questions. Let's see. Oh, so Beth asked if there will be a recording of the presentation sent afterwards, and yes, there will be. And let's see, I think maybe Rissa, maybe one more question for you, and then I think that's it. So this question, there isn't a name, but it says sometimes quality professionals, they don't have a lot of experience purchasing software. So how would you, as a CFO, help them to make the case to buy a QMS?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that is always hard. It's number one, really outlining those pieces that Jennifer talked a little bit about earlier in the presentation of, you know, how the implementation translates into dollars savings and that focus. I think that's, the starting point. I think it's a focus as well on the automation and the efficiency, which can translate as well into a, a dollar number. So I think it's, that focus on what you can clearly translate into a savings as well. And I think it's, what that strategic fit is for your department and how it is, both going to help you be more efficient as well as it makes sense, right? This is, what automation only enhances and helps teams do their jobs in a more efficient way. And I think it's really partnering with the finance organization. And this is what I said, the finance organization is really there to support. And we do enjoy this type of analysis. And I would recommend, depending on your organization, if you have a strong relationship with your business partner and you know you have to go through the CFO as an example for approval, partner with that business partner, go through the analysis that you've framed out, get his or her impact on if these are the things that your CFO would be looking for, and refine it, and then take that into the CFO. I think it's really helpful to get that feedback before you go to that final step. And having someone who's coming from that financial lens is just a different view, and they're working with that individual on a daily basis. So they know what that individual is looking for and what they're going to highlight. So I also think that's generally helpful in the process.
Great. Thanks, Rissa. So I think that's it, that all that we have for everyone today. As we mentioned, a recording will be sent to everyone. And there were a couple of questions that I don't have the answers to, but we will be following up with everyone who submitted a question to get the answer for you, because I want to make sure that you get the right information. So other than that, thank you very much. We appreciate you giving us some of your time today, and we hope you enjoy today's webinar and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.